What's up, guys? Welcome to the Thoughts Not Facts morning show where we're finally remembering our name after many episodes. I'm TK's Garage 405,
And I am free and on the road.
Kevin and Jennnifer here. So, we kind of decided we are just going to kind of go a little bit different avenue today here, and we're going to talk about some of the places. We want to start doing this a little each episode, but we want to start talking about places we've been to, states more specifically, or provinces, and kind of places we've been to there. We're going to talk about Iowa today because we actually live there, and that's probably going to be a full show today because most states we haven't spent enough time in to really give you a full show on that, but this one we have. So we ended up in Iowa because we just kind of left Canada during COVID there, and we bought a camper and truck and hit the road, and we started just exploring around and came down to the US here, and one thing led to another, and we sort of just decided we wanted to settle down somewhere after about 6 months of being on the road there. It was rolling into winter and we needed a place to kind of hunker down, so we ended up moving to Iowa, found a place just by fluke, and yeah. So I guess we're going to talk about like all the things that we've just seen, and this is just what we've seen, and this is just barely scratching the surface. We lived there for 2 years, and yeah, going to start kind of talking about, I guess, all the little, I guess it would be sightseeing type things and places like that we've been to. So yeah, we had to write it down because there's just so much, and yeah, so we moved to Creston, Iowa, and it was a pretty central area, but there was a lot in that particular area. So I guess you can start talking about some of the things we saw around, maybe like Winterset. That would be, I guess, a place to start at.
Yeah, so we lived rural. We were pretty rural living. We lived on a farm. It was about 7 acres, and we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Really, we were about 10 minutes to the closest town, and then about an hour and a half to the closest city. But there was a lot of exploring around there. We had started, I think, when we first moved there, we started by watching the Bridges of Madison County movie because that was an Iowa movie. You know, you have to watch all the movies from the state that you're in because that's just the thing to do. And then I think it was a couple months after we moved there. It was our son's birthday, and normally for our kid's birthday, we just kind of we get in the car and drive around and explore. So we decided to go and visit all the bridges of Madison County, which is in the Winterset area. So that was pretty cool. We actually took the kids, like, I mean, really, they're just bridges, but there's history behind it, and it was pretty neat to be able to read the history and learn the history and learn different things, like things we never knew about. Like a lot of these bridges were they were toll bridges,
Yeah.
and they had to pay, like it was like something like it was so many, like 5 cents to get across from one side of the bridge to the other, and it was just things that we would have never thought. I don't know, like maybe I learned it in history. I have no idea. Don't ever remember learning that in history, but it was super interesting to go to these bridges and learn those things about it and be able to see those things. And then
So that movie had Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep, right?
mm-hmm.
Which is funny because we just
Yeah, we just
no,
watched another movie.
that's where that was coming
Yeah,
from. Okay.
yeah, we just watched another movie with her,
Yeah.
but we won't talk about that because we don't recommend that movie anyway.
So of course, then with the Clint Eastwood and the Meryl Streep and all that kind of stuff, that they were big actors back then. Even that was probably from mid '90s, I'm guessing.
I have no idea.
Somewhere around there.
Our kid said it was a really old movie, so I'm assuming mid '90s.
And it was pretty. It was a pretty dry movie. It was okay. It was nothing. It was just a very flat movie, right? And the Roseman Bridge is the big one that was on the movie. We sort of thought the Bridges of Madison County was going to be like about all these bridges because there's quite a few, I think, if I remember right.
Well, and the movie was called The Bridges of Madison County,
Yeah.
but really it only showed, I think 90% of the movie was actually filmed at the Roseman, wasn't it?
So while you're talking about that,
okay.
I don't want my beer to get warm here.
I know. I'm going to sit here and drink my hot tea.
We got a mix pack. I had to blow the top of it off here because it was pretty gross. I guess they're just sitting on the shelves. I don't know. She grabbed these ones. So just so we're not buying 6 packs of everything, she found an actual place that sells individual ones. So they were probably touched 100 times. They'll probably get sick after this.
Oh my gosh, she's so dramatic.
So this
is just so everybody knows, my husband's a germaphobe.
I just don't like gross people.
Yeah, he's a germaphobe.
So this is Bentonville Brewing Company. It's made in Bentonville, Arkansas, it looks like. It's a Soul Shine Kolsh Ale. You guys can see that there. Try this one. They actually have a Kolsh beer. I wonder if this is no,
No,
that's
that's
a
a
different
different
one.
brewery, but I saw that one and I was like, he's probably gonna like this one because he likes the Kolsch. We have a brewery in right across the border here that we go to, and I'm trying to remember the name of the brewery right now.
Bricktown.
Bricktown Brewery, and they have a Kolsch ale that's actually his favorite. So when I saw this one, I thought, well, he should try it and see if he likes it because I actually see this on tap in a lot of restaurants in Arkansas. This Bentonville Kolsch,
Ooh,
and
some,
and I thought maybe if you liked it, you would know another one that you would like on tap. But so
I don't know. I feel like it would taste better on tap. Would you like to take a
I
sip
think
of it?
I'm gonna
In the
skip out
pass?
this time.
That's cool.
I'm on a strict cleanse right now, so
All
I will
right,
let
back to
him
Iowa.
drink his beer.
Not
You're gonna
bad.
tell him about
It's
it?
I don't know. I don't know what to compare it to. It's very.
I'll smell it.
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't
I
really know.
love
I don't
beer.
know.
I
It's
just know
different.
that I probably shouldn't drink it right now.
I'm so used to drinking lagers most of the time.
It actually smells really good.
It's not bad. It's just
It does. It smells like
beer
a
always
nice
tastes better
light
on tap.
beer.
Yeah, I can drink this.
So what we probably should do is we're gonna get our physics here, so you can start pretending like they're on tap.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. It's crazy how much that changes it.
And then I'll at least. So anyway, try it out. Try out Bentonville Brewing in Arkansas. It's a lighter. This is a lighter beer. I know they have a bunch of different ones.
Yeah, it's not hoppy or anything like that. It doesn't have that. Like sometimes, if you're a certain type of beer person where you like blondes or lights or lagers, it doesn't have any weird kind of backsplash to it. So yeah, not bad.
Is it easy drinking? You're gonna be able to handle that.
Yeah, it's not bad.
He decided to add the beer tasting.
They have a hashtag here: better than sunshine.
Better than sunshine. I don't know if I agree with that. Better in sunshine.
I will put that there.
But this morning when we sat down to record because he decided to do a morning show. He's like, "Dang, I have to drink beer first thing in the morning," and I was like, "Well, you wanted a morning show."
It doesn't mean we had to do it in the morning.
Well, there you have it. So anyway, let's go back to Iowa.
Yeah, we're getting off track here.
We always do.
All right. So the bridge is Madison County, and then so that's in Winterset, Iowa, around that area.
And then we found what's the guy that was born there?
John Wayne.
John Wayne. So the John Wayne house is actually there. We actually walked into the house. So apparently you have to pay for it. You have to go to the museum and pay for it. And I didn't know that. So I just walked in the house like I owned the place, and I started walking around, and then they kicked us out because we didn't go.
So yeah, it's the birthplace of John Wayne, and then they have a John Wayne museum, which I don't.
We actually never went to the museum because I think every time we went through there it was like late in the day, or we didn't have much time, or there was always something. Sometimes when it's in your own backyard, it's harder to go do things than when you actually go and travel to go do it. But it wasn't far from our house, so
Winterset's actually like a really cool area too. They have lots of little cool things in their main, I guess, their business area. They have like a business square there, and there's just a lot of cool little things there. It's definitely worth a check out. They had a bad tornado go through there the year we moved there.
Yeah, it was the year we moved there, and it ripped up. It ripped up. There was a park. It was where that tower was because your parents had come. That wherever that tower was, is that tower right outside of Winterset that we went to?
That's what I was actually going to mention. Yeah, so there's a campground there. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Clark Tower, if I remember.
Yeah,
right.
The tower's called Clark Tower.
You drive up into the park there, and then there's like actually right in Winterset, there's one of the bridges actually.
They moved it. They actually moved the bridge so it could be in the park.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty neat to see. But yeah, there's this tower you can climb up, and it's got a view of the whole area. It's pretty elevated up there. But yeah, super cool to see. What else we see?
So anyway, what he was trying to say when he lost track of his thought.
There's just so much around there.
What he was trying to say was the first time we went to that tower, it was like the trees were just filling the area, and it was totally full and beautiful. And the second time we went, we actually took his parents had come to visit us, and we took them to the tower, and it was just maybe 2 weeks after this what are they called, tornado? I was going to call it a hurricane. This tornado came through, and the trees were just ripped all around it, and the tower wasn't touched. It was crazy actually, because the trees were just twisted and turned and ripped up, and
you could see like a perfect path that went through, though. It just noodled up the trees. And then we didn't see this, they said if you go look you could see it, but apparently there was a house that actually got picked right up, spun 180 and dropped back down on the foundation. Like they said, it looked like it was almost just meant to be like that, but it was backwards. So we didn't see that. But if
Yeah.
anybody knows about that,
So we had some crazy weather when we lived in Iowa.
yeah,
It was,
never really affected us though. It just kind of skirted north of us
there
all
was
the
a
time
couple
where we
times we
lived
ran
there, and
down to the basement, but the only thing was when that big tree fell.
yeah,
I'll put a picture of that up so you guys can see that. We had this when we were. It was actually right before we left Iowa. There was a huge windstorm, and you guys were outside, weren't you? Wasn't that the day you guys were outside when
hmm
that tree fell?
yeah,
They were actually had gone out in the morning to load some stuff up, and they went out. Him and my son had gone out to load, and I told him, I said, "Oh, it's supposed to rain today," and he's like, "Oh, I don't know. It looks a little overcast." And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it was the craziest, most insane windstorm ever. And we had this huge, I don't know what tree was that. It's like red, it was redwood. So was it a redwood tree? Is
I think
that
it's a walnut tree.
walnut tree?
Yeah,
The wood is
it was
beautiful.
big,
I'll put some
anyways. Yeah,
pictures up and show you. But the whole tree, we just heard this like crack noise, and I saw it fall out of the window, and the whole entire tree fell in our yard. And they were trying to take cover.
yeah. We actually have some videos of that too. There, it was wild. Like, I mean, just crazy wind, and it was blowing like branches around that were this thick and just pounding off the side of my truck, and yeah, it was pretty gnarly. But yeah, we didn't really get well. We had a couple times where that we had a big shop there, like a Quonset, and it ripped like a front half of the Quonset off at one point there, and then there was what else do we see
Well,
there?
it was really weird because there was that one time, and I don't know if that was when your parents were there or a different time, but that one storm came through, and we had a church that was less than a quarter mile from our house, and their whole roof got ripped off, and their trees got knocked down, and it didn't even touch our house. It was so weird, and it was like, what was weird is you could see where it was like a tornado that came through. You could see the path of it where it came through the cornfields, and it hit this church, and then you could see it go across where it went across the highway, and it hit the houses on the other side. And it was just like a weird, remember that storm? It was like just a weird path of
Yeah,
where it went through. And it was like, but it didn't affect our house that time.
yeah, and we kind of watched it go through that time there. It was
Yeah.
pretty interesting, but yeah,
So
it was,
anyway, there's our crazy weather stories for Iowa. That was a
yeah,
new
there was
one.
some pretty gnarly weather there though. Like, and like I said, we skirted around most of it. That last one where it knocked the tree down though, that did do some damage there because it knocked down. There's an old shed that had been standing for probably 100 years, and that got bulldozed down by the wind there. And
Yeah, there's a few other things.
nothing too
Our
serious,
vehicles were
but
all okay, and we had actually just moved our camper that day, and we were talking about that. If our camper was the other direction, it probably would have picked it up and taken it. But we had just moved it. We had it in the driveway one direction, the way the wind would have been hitting up against it. And he had just moved it the night before. I don't remember why we moved it, but we were like, oh, we should probably move it tonight. And we moved it, and then that storm hit. So it could have been there could
yeah,
have been a lot
it
more
was laying
damage.
like
Yeah,
yeah crossways. It probably would have
yeah.
just it was plowings going through there. And actually, we went to somebody's house that day. Remember?
Yeah.
And they were cleaning up trees, and I don't remember what we were doing, but
Oh yeah, they were
we
cleaning and
went,
we got stuck.
yeah,
I have the videos of that too.
yeah, but they had some massive trees too, and it was just a couple spots there. It just went through perfectly, and they said they've never seen wind like that. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, yeah, that was some of the craziness. We had some right in Creston there, just north of Creston. We saw a couple shops ripped down at right like the one summer there, and yeah,
Yeah, so we were only there a couple years, and we saw some crazy weather, some things I've never seen. I grew up around hurricanes, and then I lived through monsoons. So this is the first time I've ever lived through tornadoes. So I mean, I guess I get to learn all the spectrums of all the weather by real life experience.
there you go. All right, well, well, I guess we're gonna talk about some of the places we wanted to go to that we never did, which is so like the Buddy Holly crash site was one of them, and I guess it's not really very well marked. If you Google it, you'll see there's a couple little things there, but it's pretty not well marked. What's interesting about that was in Clear Lake, Iowa, and they were flying from Clear Lake to I forget where to that night, and me and my son went into the pawn shop in Creston like not that long ago, actually probably 6 months ago, and there was it was the only known photos that were actually color photos that were taken by a farmer at that time of the actual like of the crash, I guess, like the original crash. And then they had some of like the posters, the original posters from the dance or whatever that was happening that night and things like that. And they weren't asking like crazy for it. I don't think. I don't know what that stuff would be worth, but I think it was $2,500 for it all or whatever. So I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, man, that would be, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, that would be kind of neat
Yeah,
to
we
have. But
always talked about going, and it wasn't far from us, but I mean, I think life just sometimes gets a hold of you. Sometimes where it's like your own backyard, it's hard to remember all these things too.
and there's just so much. Like I think that was the thing, was there was so much within what, probably 100 miles of
Mm-hmm.
us, like 100-mile radius of us. It was just overwhelming how much stuff there was actually. Like
And it's funny because you ask people that live there and they're like, "Oh no, there's not really anything here." But then like the longer we lived there, the more we found more things. And it was interesting because people didn't realize how much cool stuff there was in their own
yeah,
backyard. Like people that have lived there their whole life is like, "Oh, I've never done that," or "I've never done that." There's a lot of things that we did or we saw that friends that we had met in Iowa have never done or experienced. So, I mean, I guess that's kind of why we like talking about the places we've lived and the places we've been, is to kind of get people to go explore your own backyard. I'll bet there's people from Iowa watching this right now that haven't been to some of these places that we've been to, right? And just kind of explore your backyard.
yeah,
I, I think one thing was, it was our son's birthday. It was his 5th birthday, and we were trying to find out what we could do. We like doing things different. We don't like just we're not like we're not birthday party. We're not a birthday party family. We like doing stuff with our kids. Like for us, it's all about family time, and we're not also very good planners. So the morning of his birthday, I told Kevin, I was like, hey, we should go do something with him. And I started searching online, and I found that there was this train ride. It was in Boone, Iowa, which is right outside of Des Moines, right? It's
yeah,
right outside of Des Moines. It's
yeah,
about,
just north of Des Moines. So
yeah.
yeah,
And there's like a train ride that you can take through Boone, and our son he loves trains. So I was like, we definitely have to go take this train ride. So we just decided that day to go out there and do the train ride, and that was a pretty cool experience.
yeah,
Like,
super cool actually. Yeah, we went on it. Some of them, my parents came back last May, I guess,
yeah.
and we decided to take them on it. So we took them for a little tour of the day there, and we took them on the train ride, and then we went and same thing within probably 100, well, not even, probably 50 miles of our house there. There's tons of this world's largest things. I think we've mentioned that in the past. We used to do tons of that when I was a kid. So we went and just did a quick Google there and saw what was around us. And there was we went and saw the world's largest Danish windmill, which is the world's largest working Danish windmill in the U.S. I shouldn't say the world's largest; it's the largest working like grain Danish windmill in the U.S. I believe is how they say it.
Do you
It
remember
must
what?
be like a
Do you
Danish
remember what
area.
town that was in?
I don't,
I
but
actually,
I could figure that
we'll
out for you.
figure it out for you. But
But
that
yeah,
was pretty
that's
cool.
just north of the interstate I-80 there.
And we saw the shootout spot, Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh yeah, I forgot
That's
about
right. And
that.
we did all that when your parent. We did it all in one day.
That
Like,
was by sort of by accident we found that.
yeah, and we saw there's like it was it's where the river met. It's right outside of Des Moines. It's like where the river met, and it was like where one of their it was it like their final shootout before they were on the run or something.
Yeah, there used to actually be an amusement park there, and they were kind of camped up there. And I guess all this is where all like the sheriffs or whatever kind of finally closed in on them. And yeah, they had a major shootout there, and that was the last spot, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was one of the last spots. I know it went on after that, but it was really interesting. I never even
yeah, I
knew that
totally forgot about
Iowa
that.
had played such a big history in that until we drove around and found it. And that's just again about driving around and finding things. And it was cool because we found out, like you said, it was a theme park. And a theme park back in the day was they just had this big open river, and it was where people would just come, like, and it was like literally a park or a theme park for people to come and swim and play and have fun.
They
And
had things there though too. There was like it said there was all sorts of stuff there,
was there all sorts
like
of stuff? I
Ferris
don't
wheels
remember.
and
It was
whatever.
like,
Like I think there was water slides of some sort. And actually that same day too, we saw by accident again. Wasn't it Jesse James? Remember where
yes,
the train
it was a
tracks were
train
there?
shootout, like where it was, they kept the actual original tracks are still there. So
Yeah,
we took pictures by the original tracks.
right. Jesse James, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was Jesse James.
And
Yeah.
there's like the original piece of the track and the train bed and everything still there,
We
where they
actually
kind of
went to
had a
that one on purpose because your dad had wanted to see that. We're like, well, we've never been there. We actually had to find it. We found it on Google Maps or whatever, and then had gone there. And that was kind of how we found some of the other stuff, was going to
yeah.
that. So it's interesting.
Um,
I was trying to remember what else we saw. We
yeah, I
saw
know
that
it's
tree.
just
There was that big
staggering.
tree in the road,
Yes.
which
So
is
that's like Iowa's largest tree, and it's right in the middle of an intersection. Unfortunately, people, there's just going to be those people, and people have started painting it and vandalizing it and whatever, but it's still there and it's still standing strong or whatever. But, you know, you guys go see that kind of stuff, have respect for it. Like obviously
Yeah.
that's something like don't be vandalizing it and doing things like that. I mean, whatever. But that's super cool. It's like I said, it's in a four-way intersection, kind of on a dirt road, and yeah, we kind of kept touring from there.
We also, well, I guess it was in that Danish town where they had all those Hans Christian Andersen fountains.
Yes, I was trying to remember, and I couldn't remember what
And it
that
was like
was.
I'm trying to remember what the
The Little
significance.
Mermaid.
Yeah, it had like the Little Mermaid, but it was like all the Hans Christian Andersen stories, and they had fountains of them. And I know there was like,
And if you walked along, it told you a story.
yeah, I told you a story of it. It was actually really neat. So that was cool. We got to do that, and there was a reason why. I think it was because he was Danish, because it was right by the Danish town. But there was a reason why they put that memorabilia there, and I can't remember now.
Yeah, I can't remember either,
There's
but
only so many. There's only so many
it's
thoughts
yeah,
I can
just
have in this head at once.
usually something triggers our memory that we forget. We've just seen so many things. I mean, and that's just like that. This is the course of 2 years, and this is just what we're thinking off the top of our head. This isn't even everything. Like, I mean, it's staggering, right?
Yeah.
But and this is just Iowa.
And we
We've
didn't
been
even like explore all of Iowa. Like there's so much more we had wanted to see. Like we didn't even go. I mean, there's so many other like even like historical landmarks and cities and things to see in Iowa that we barely scratched the surface.
yeah.
I mean, there's really so much to see and so much to explore. And every time we go out, like every time we load our kids up and go for a drive for the day, we always find something cool or find something to explore or some sort of part of history.
I was driving not that long ago, actually, just before we moved down to Oklahoma, and um, I was driving along, and I think I sent her a picture. I was like, Anne Frank's, right?
Mm-hmm.
This Anne Frank's pen pal museum, and it's some little tiny, like, I don't even think it's a town. It's just a tiny little whatever hamlet or whatever you call it there, and it's like something to do. I googled it. It was something to do with like how she was living in this house, and she was still writing letters back and forth from this place in Iowa. Like there was some significance, or the person she was sending the letters to, I think, is what it was. I didn't ever go see it, but I just saw the sign for it. And I thought, well, that's really weird. Anne Frank's, what's that have to do with Iowa? But yeah, I'm not very good with history. Maybe somebody can correct me here.
We're not saying we're history buffs. We're learning a little bit at a time. There's
Yeah,
been I mean, I think that's what's really cool about history, and what's really cool about even the US is how they showcase it. Like when you drive around the country, like we've talked about that many times, like if you were to just fly from one state to another, you wouldn't be able to see all of these cool landmarks and these cool things, because the US is really good about showcasing the things
yeah,
that are kind of cool part of history, and we remember things more when we go to it, right? Like
yeah. That's why we talk so much about why we think it's way better to drive places than to fly places, because I can guarantee you, if you've met somebody that's been to every state and they've been there flying, they don't know any of this stuff. They probably never even heard of three-quarters of this stuff, right? And I mean, we like I said, we've only scratched the surface. Like I feel if you were retired and you had an RV and you could just like spend like a week in one area, a week in another area,
yeah, that's how I feel.
or the park. Say if you were going to do something like go there in the summertime and just park your camper right mid Iowa somewhere, and then just have a little car and drive around and spend like a month or two just exploring Iowa. It would take all of that at least, and you probably would barely still even
Yeah.
see most of it, right? Yeah. So before we moved to Iowa, when I was still working in public works, I flew down to Davenport at one point there, which is kind of on the Illinois Iowa border. There's a whole bunch of stuff in that area too. I did some stuff through John Deere there. It's really cool actually, but there's a bunch of stuff on the Illinois side, which is just a stone's throw across. They have like the John Deere homestead and then the John Deere headquarters, and all that stuff kind of relates to, and it's right there. And then at the same time, the first time I came down, we went to the antique archaeology American Pickers store, and I sort of thought it was going to be something different than it was, and I was, of course, they're never going to be there, right? But I, we've been there now. I took the kids back there
We've been
one
there at
time,
least
and
three
then
times,
yeah,
yeah.
we've been probably together at least a
And we
few.
went to the one in Nashville as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so but we've never seen them, which is too bad. Would be cool if somebody from the show was there once in a while or something like that. But yeah, we haven't seen anybody. But yeah, that's just one of those things. But it's super cool to see it, and it's kind of just not what you would think it is. So it's just different, but it's definitely worth the check anyways, eh?
Yeah, that was
Um,
another thing we did. I think that was another birthday. Actually, we took a trip. It wasn't that far. I think Davenport was probably 4 hours from where we lived,
yeah,
and we decided to get just stay up there for like 3 or 4 days, and we explored that little quadrant for 4 days. And that's when we took our kids to the John Deere homestead, and that was really cool. It's a free experience. They walk
yeah,
you through the John Deere homestead, and they tell you all the history about John Deere. They show you. They have a blacksmith guy that's actually doing blacksmith work. I mean, I think our kids got so much out of that trip.
yeah. That's
They
cool.
learned so much stuff from it. And then I think one of the John Deere museums was closed at the time because when we went, I think it was like they closed stuff during the winter because it's colder and we were like right
Yeah,
at the cusp of it being closed. But we went to that, and then we had actually stayed in what is the Quad Cities?
Davenport.
Davenport. That's where
Yeah,
we had stayed, and there was we went to a couple breweries while we were there. I remember we went downtown with the kids to a brewery. That was
yeah.
kind of fun.
And then they have like the big John Deere corridor down there. It's like there's a name for it. I can't remember, but it's like huge. There's actually like big combines and tractors out front right on the steps and
Yeah,
stuff there.
our son
Um,
was just like totally enthralled because these things are like I mean they're massive, right? I
yeah,
mean they don't
it's like
normally
farm
have
equipment. Yeah, like the
experience to be that
biggest.
close to it either. Like a lot of
Yeah,
times you see it from a distance, but especially as a little kid, you think, you're 5, 6 years old and this machine's like 100 times your size. So that was a
yeah,
pretty cool experience for them. And then we did the archaeology thing. I'm
yeah.
trying to remember what else. I know we did some other stuff when we were there. There was
I know
there
it's
was so much. I know
so
you and I
overwhelming.
went back another time,
If
and
we looked
there's
through our pictures, we would remember. But
there's like a river that comes the river comes right through there. That's the Mississippi River comes right through there.
yeah,
So that's really cool. It's beautiful. It comes right down through the whole area, and you can see
we
um
went to that restaurant actually, which
yeah,
wasn't very.
it
The
wasn't,
restaurant wasn't the best. I don't remember the
but the
name
view
anyways,
was
but
amazing.
yeah,
The
it was
view
right
was,
on
I
the
mean, it was
river,
like
and
really it was really a bummer because I mean the view was amazing. It could have been an amazing restaurant if they had a good cook, but
yeah,
anyway. But that was kind of where I learned about I started doing a little bit more research about how they barge. I didn't realize that as a country we still barge so much stuff. Like I guess I never, I mean, you just are kind of what do you call that, naive to it, like we just don't know about it. And watching, like we were sitting there at that restaurant that day and there was a barge and it was pushing how many boats, like a towboat, like, or pulling how many boats. You remember how many barges it had? It was like we were
like lots. Yeah, it's
it's
crazy. A
just like
little tugboat or
crazy how
whatever
these
just
little
pushes
tugboats
these
like pull,
around.
and I've never seen anything like that. And that's kind of cool history
It
things
is,
or
yeah,
things that are happening today that you don't really think about, that's happening, like these trades that are happening
yeah,
right here right now, and we don't really know much about them. So
yeah.
anyway, there was my rant.
Buffalo Bill Museum is right there too. I don't know if I ever took you guys there or not,
I
but
didn't know, we never
they
went to
have it
that.
in Davenport there too. Um, yeah, it's pretty cool to see. I want to say there's something else in that area, like something to do, like almost like
I was
I don't
trying to
know,
remember what else we saw in that area because I know we did
because I we
lots when
went
we were
through the
there.
park there and there was stuff down there too. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, so yeah, we're just like I said, we drove through. I think when my parents were here too, we went to this. It was just some random tunnel. I think it's the only tunnel in Iowa. And it's just like kind of burrowed through the side of this hill in the state park there.
Oh, that's right. I
I just
remember
I don't
that.
know even know why. I just like I wonder if I was gonna eat tunnels. It
And we
was just
went to
not that
the
far from us. And there's like a little
oh,
weir there with I think that's by Winterset area too, if I remember right. It's not too far from there.
I thought that was not your. We didn't take your parents there. We took our nephews there
Oh yes, you're right. Yeah.
because they were walking across the little weird thing that you can actually. It was really cool because it was like the water was low enough that you could drive across, and
Yeah.
sometimes the water is not, but it was actually low enough that the road went right through it, and you
Yeah.
could just drive right across it. So that was really cool.
Uh,
I'll have to try to find some of the names of these. Maybe I'll put links in there for you guys if I remember some of them. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Kind of around Crescent, I guess. Like we spent lots of time there. We went to the Mexican restaurant in town there,
yeah,
Casadora.
Pasadora.
Casadora. We lots of times there. They were the best restaurant we found around there.
The
Good.
best restaurant was a coffee shop.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Adam Street Espresso. We spent almost. I mean, pretty much every time we were in town, we were there. Really good food, awesome coffee, super great people there.
Yeah.
Some of our good friends.
If you go to Creston, best coffee, best cold brew ever for sure, and they have the best staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a mechanic there too. Creston Automotive.
Oh
right?
yes, they were really
They were
good.
like super good to us while we
Hmm.
were there. I mean, like unbelievable. I mean, I'm pretty like frustrated over the years with a lot of different mechanics, and they've treated me so good, and they always took care of me. And I mean, I always immediately paid them and things like that, so I'm sure that helped. But we just they took care of us. They knew what we did and everything like that. And if we needed something in a bind, they always helped us out as best they could. And yeah, we were really appreciated that, even though we're not there anymore, and now we don't really have anybody. So it's kind of a loss for us. But yeah, what are some of the other ones there around Creston?
Like some of the other things we saw around Creston, or some of the things that
Yeah, just even in town, some of the businesses we dealt with, there was
I
still a
mean,
smaller town. So
I guess most of the businesses were smaller. What is actually surprising was their medical there was actually really good. Like their
yeah,
doctors there were actually better than some of the places that we've lived now.
probably, I would say probably the best medical I
It
think we've
was like
ever had,
easy.
to
It
be
was
honest.
easy to get into the doctors. It was easy to get the referrals. That was one thing about Iowa that I was really surprised about. Like, I mean, since we've lived here, I've had a harder time getting referrals and things like that. And there, they had a really good system for it. And
Yeah.
that's something I can definitely say Iowa has a one up on most places that I've lived. Even like I mean, I've lived a lot of states, and they definitely have a one up on that. Um,
I feel like too, like to be totally honest, like I've been to almost every state now, and I think Iowa's one of the cleanest states. Like I'm saying, like as far as like if you drive around other states, I'm not gonna knock on particular states, but I mean there's a lot of states where like I'll give you even an example, even where we live now, just even in our neighborhood, trash everywhere, right? Just you know, and Iowa, I didn't really feel like that. I felt
no, it
like
was
people had
people have
maybe a
respect
little
for their
more
land.
respect
Maybe
there, and they
like I
maybe
don't.
clean up
Yeah,
a little more, or whatever the case is. But yeah, it's just definitely feels a little cleaner, a little crisper. Doesn't feel like people throw their McDonald's trash out their window, or whatever, and things like that. So I
yeah.
think that's to me when I travel through places like that, I'm like, oh, hey, it looks a little cleaner, and you know,
Yeah.
that's the whole state as a whole. I feel like so. That's just my opinion, but there's the world's largest I-80 truck stop. I took you there one time. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, and everybody says anytime that he ever posts on any of his social media about Iowa, they always say, "You better go to the I-80 truck stop." So we made sure we've been there more than once,
Yeah,
guys.
we're going back and forth a bit here because it's just like I said, we're trying to remember. We kind of wrote some stuff down because it's just so much. We've seen so much there. It's overwhelming. But yeah, where else there?
So normally I would close the show with an Oklahoma fact,
Hmm.
but I didn't have enough time to prepare an Oklahoma fact today. So it's not going to be an Oklahoma fact. It's going to be an Iowa brewery.
Ah, I like it.
How's that? We'll
Sure.
close the show with the Iowa brewery, and
Yeah.
then we'll wrap it up with that. So we actually went for my friend's birthday. We went in Des Moines to. You didn't write the brewery down, but I'm pretty sure it's called Rock Tap Brewery. You're gonna look it up so I make sure I have the right
Yeah.
name. If once he pulls it up, I'll tell you. But anyway, we went there. I'd actually tried to go there once with. I have a really good friend that lives in Des Moines, and I tried to go there with her once in the middle of the day. We tried to go to this particular brewery, but they only open in the evening time. So then for her birthday, we actually ended up going to it. It's Big Grove.
Big Grove.
Big Grove Brewery and Tap Room. So if you go to Des Moines, you have to try Big Grove Brewery and Tap Room. They do have they have good food. They had I've had a couple of their different things, but they have if you like ahi poke, they have a really good poke bowl. They also have really good beer, and they also have which was great because I was doing low carb at the time. They have actual seltzers on, like they make seltzer there too, like their own seltzer, and it's not sweet, it's sugar free. So um, they kind of are for everybody. Like they have really good beer, really good food, really good seltzer, really good environment. It was a fun place. We went there for her birthday, and then we went there back for a date once or twice because we enjoyed it
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much.
There's a couple other ones too. There's some really nice fancy restaurants there too, but that's kind of the one
Yeah,
we've
there's
been to a
one other
few times.
restaurant that
So
we really like there. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but that was a brewery I wanted to mention today.
yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add to
No,
that?
we're kind of running a little bit long here, rambling or whatever. So
That's okay. People like us. We're cute.
yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and share us around and help us grow the channel there. I'm TK's Garage 405.
And I am free and on the road. And this is Thoughts,
Not
Not Facts
facts.
morning show. See
Catch
you
you
next
guys on the
time.
next time.